You're listening to 101 with Tommie Zam. On the 14th episode, we sit down with Pete Thompson talking about his latest book, 93 Till, and life. Let's do this. Hey, what's up, Pete? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, Tommy? How are you?
Good. How's everything going out there for you?
Things are good, man. I just, just in San Francisco these days and, settling in and enjoying being back in the city.
Oh, hell yeah. And you getting a lot of fires out there or what?
Well, I miss the fires, actually. I just moved out a couple weeks ago.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
So I missed all the fires, but I did get here in the middle of a heat wave.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, just coming from New York. I was like, oh, I'm not going to have any more crazy heat anymore. And showed up and it was 91 degrees.
You're like this, oh shit, dude, what the hell is following me?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, at least is a different, like, at least there's no humidity. You know what I mean?
It's amazing. Oh, that's the best part of it, like by far, hands down. Like just the humidity is a killer, man. I do not miss that. I'm happy that's not going to be the normal for me anymore.
Yeah, I just took off from California. I came to Florida for a little bit, and I'm here in Pensacola, Florida for a little bit, just kicking it. And eventually, once things get open up and things get on crazy out west, I'm gonna go back to San Diego. I do miss the weather and the food and all that good stuff. So I totally get what you're saying about the humidity, man.
Oh, it's terrible. God, just changes everything.
Oh, it does. Trust me, man. All right, well, cool. Nice. Well, you ready to get this started?
Sure. Yeah, let's chat. We'll break it down or break it up sideways. I don't know where. Let's talk.
All right, definitely, dude. And so since some of us know who you are, but there might be some people that might not know who you are. Just tell us a little bit about you, Pete.
I'm just I'm a photographer. I've been shooting since I was probably 17 professionally. I did the whole skateboarding thing for roughly 13 years, and kind of needed to move on and do something new and challenge myself in different ways. And I took a big time off and really tried to find my path, which is a tough process. And then eventually started doing doing commercial photography. I was an assistant for a while, but then I started doing commercial photography in New York. And now I'm back out in the Bay and still doing that same stuff. But the book is, the book has been kind of, taken over my life in the last 2 years or so. It's a long process, way more time and way more expensive than I ever thought it would have ended up being. But it's been really great.
Oh yeah, dude, that's awesome, man. And we'll step back a little bit. Where'd you grow up, and what got you into skateboarding?
I grew up in Northern California, and I think the thing that got me into skateboarding was just, the sense of individuality about it. Just that it's just your own thing, and there's really no sense of scoring or points or anything like that. And it was something that was active, but it wasn't like it wasn't like a jock thing. It was just about you and your own personal journey, learning tricks or not learning tricks or cruising down the street or just doing whatever you wanted to do on a skateboard. And that really appealed to me, that openness, that sort of, choose your own kind of path type of activity really just appealed to me. So that, and then when I was 12, my family moved to North Carolina, and that changed things pretty drastically in terms of skateboarding. Skateboarding just didn't have the presence that it had in Northern California. So I just sort of had to start it over a little bit in North Carolina. but you know, I was in the right place at the right time when it started to be like something that I wanted to photograph rather than do.
Yeah.
The East Coast was blowing up and really needed to be. It needed some shine,
Yeah.
you know. And there's a lot of dudes that were you know, really diehard guys. I mean, if you're an East Coast skateboarder, period, like you're up against so many more hurdles. You know what I
Well,
mean?
you gotta think about it. You got rough roads out there. You got like,
Here, it's, you know, honestly, it's so much of it is weather. And at the time, also just like not knowing what skateboarding, like just the public in the East Coast just didn't really know what skateboarding was. You know, California had surf culture that went back decades, and you know, like that whole lifestyle was sort of conducive to skateboarding. So skateboarders were actually, they weren't cool back then. They weren't like shunned the way that they were shunned on the. If you were on the East Coast and you skated, you definitely were like shunned big time. Like they
yeah.
did not have time for even thinking about what you were doing or even caring. So yeah, so that was a big shift.
Yeah, and you know, going from like NorCal to North Carolina, I mean, that was a big culture shock for you, because you know, just two different things, you know, two different countries, no, not country, but two different states. You know what I mean? Like you said, you got the East Coast and you got the West Coast, but especially go from North Cal to North Carolina. I mean, it's like you're probably like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, yeah. You know, Northern California was just like, you know, I grew up with Asian kids, Black kids, Mexican kids, like, you know, all different sizes, shapes, colors, and you know, I was in public school, and it was like we're all in there together. It was almost like, wow, this is the way that society should sort of work. But then when I went to North Carolina, it was like a church every 3 blocks. Everybody watched college basketball, and a lot of the kids, it was very segregated. You know, just the kid, like the black and brown kid. Well, there really weren't even any brown kids. It was just black and white, black kids and white kids. And you know, there's a little bit of crossover, but for the most part, you know, it's definitely you know, segregated. And I'm, you know, you're talking about the South. You know, it's much different than like kumbaya, liberal, embrace everyone, Northern California.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. The skate culture in North Carolina, what was that like?
I mean, it was small, you know, and you know, it's really hard for a lot of the guys who skated there to really picture what skateboarding could be when there wasn't magazines and skate pros and stuff like that around. I mean, there were some good skateboarders there, and we were lucky. We had a scene. You know, there was a vert scene there that had been going on for a long time, with the farm, this ramp called the farm ramp. And so, you know, it was cool, but it just wasn't, you know, it just felt like you were out in the middle of nowhere. You know?
Nah, definitely. And do you remember your first board?
My first board was a Santa Cruz Jammer.
What?
Yeah, like it was, and I remember it was somebody else's board. I think they just gave me a used board, so I had that for a while, and then I just I don't know. After that, I mean, I think I had like an ATV, which was like I don't remember even what the brand was. It's called the ATV, and then I can't remember how many. Oh, I had a ton of Christian Hosoi Hammerhead boards. I had probably 2 dozen of those.
Oh, what?
Yeah, the mini, the Hammerhead mini.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, super simple, dipped paint with just the you know, just the black Hosoi graphic. Yeah, that was like my jam.
Hell yeah, dude. I remember mine. Mine was the Pal Peralta Lance Mountain with the running guys on it. With
the Future Primitive.
Yeah. With
dude, that board. I had that board. I had that board in Bonite. It was brand new, and I had it, and then I gave it to my buddy Jake Rosenberg, because he's like a big time collector. But yeah, that was a dope. That was an amazing board. That was such a cool graphic.
Yeah, it was, and it had like I think it was Going Street Shadows and like OG Slim Slime Balls on there.
Yeah. So that was like that must have for you that must have been like what like 85,
Yeah,
86?
it was like late '80s, I can say, like mid '80s, late '80s, kind of like around there. Because I think
Yeah.
I started like around, I think it was like '84 or '83, I can't remember. Like
Yeah.
officially, like actual officially skateboarding was probably like '84, '85. But I mean, I rode a board when I was like in '83, you know. But not
Okay.
like I was young, dude. I was like, skateboarder, what is this, you know? But then
Yeah.
once I started like, you know, going to like watching vert skating and stuff like that, I got more into it, you know.
Yeah. 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 Those
But
are good days.
oh yeah, definitely. And so, how'd you get up? You know, when did you start picked up a camera? Did you like one day just like, you know, looking through Transworld, Thrasher stuff, and just like I want to start shooting photos, or were you just with a bunch of homies, or what?
I mean, I think that it was like, there's all, I looked at those skate magazines, of course, like anybody else, and like tore pictures out and hung them on my wall and stuff. But like, yeah, I mean, I guess I sort of fell in love with like the fantasy of creating something that looked like, it looked and felt like you were there,
Mm-hmm.
and that to like, a 14-year-old, 15-year-old skateboarder is like really powerful, just to feel like, oh man, what would it be like to just be sitting there when like Tony Hawk and Hosoi are like on the deck, skating or a vert ramp or something, or what would it be like to be there when Tommy Guerrero is like doing, some kind of trick, you know what I mean? Just like it felt like it captured this sort of fantasy moment, and I just thought that was like, I don't know. It just really captured my imagination. And so, I had a point and shoot camera that my grandmother bought me that actually is in the book. There's a picture of it in the book. And I started taking photos, but I didn't take skate photos really at first. I just took pictures of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, at some point I was like, oh wow, like it'd be cool to have a fisheye, and like I just sort of started to put it together with the camera, and I bought a camera for my got some money for my birthday. I bought a camera and a lens, and just started experimenting, and just like really just kind of finding my way and making mistakes, and just having fun with it. And also I knew a bunch of skateboarders that were actually decent skateboarders, so I had people to take photos of, like kind of straight off the bat.
Yeah. And do you remember? Sorry, Rochi, but did you remember your first photo that you took of a skateboarder?
Not well, I mean, the stuff that's in the book, like of Danny Way and Neil Blender, those were sort of like the first like photos of skateboarders, I guess, that were
that well known
kind of. Yeah, you could see what was happening, and it was like a cool trick, and they were timed right. I think that was probably it, which was Skate Camp in 1987, 88. And that was that was the year I had met Jake Rosenberg actually at that skate camp on that ramp that's in the book with Neil Blender doing the frontside invert.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that's probably it. Those photos were. I mean, there was probably other stuff before that of like my friend, rolling off of a ledge or something.
But
yeah. So.
No, that's definitely sick. And were you like nervous when you took those pictures?
No, because I was just a camper, and it wasn't like I told them to do anything. Actually, you know what? I might have actually asked somebody to do. I didn't ask Danny Way to do what he did. The lean air of Danny Way. He just was skating. But yeah, I guess it's kind of pretty cool that I like sort of knew where to stand and knew like how to like aim and crop the camera.
Yeah.
And I think that just came from like using that point and shoot camera to shoot pictures of my friends goofing off before that. So I kind of knew what I was doing. And that camera actually had an instant shutter.
Really?
So when you press the button, there was no delay. Yeah, so that made a huge difference because so many of those cameras back then were you would press the button and it'd be even like a small delay ruins the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I kind of had it in my mind as to where to stand and how to take one of those photos just from looking at the magazines for so many years.
Yeah. And did you like kind of like remember like, okay, like, you know, watching like Grant Brenton shooting photos or Dave Swift shooting photos like in the magazines where you're kind of like, okay, that's how the angle of the way I need to be or this and that?
No, I didn't really. No, I didn't. Yeah, I mean, maybe unconsciously.
Oh, okay.
You know, I just was like, oh yeah, this is like the best place to stand, so don't get like weird shots of, you know, those photos. I definitely took really bad photos back then, but for some reason those photos ended up being good, and you know, I ended up holding on to the negatives for a long time, which that in itself is remarkable. Like just to start off with, yeah.
And then how? And then did you think? I mean, so when Danny Wayne, did you show Danny Wayne those photos that you took back in those days, or did you just like, hey, this is what I took, and or did you do anything?
I didn't know him. I mean, nobody knew who he was.
Oh, okay.
Like everybody was talking about him before he showed up at camp. Like all the pros, like you know, like John Sonner and like all these local pros that were. Well, John Sonner wasn't local, but like all these pros that were there that were skating the vert ramp because none of the campers were skating the vert ramp.
Mm-hmm.
They were all on the street course with like Brian Lottie and Matt Hensley.
Oh, what?
And so. You know, I was only there was only a handful of campers that were skating the vert ramp, and so we would just hear all these guys talking about when's Danny Way? Is Danny Way coming? Was Danny Way going to come skate? Is Danny Way on his way here? Is he going to show up? Where's Danny Way? And all of me and everybody else that was at camp was like, who's Danny Way?
Are you serious?
Like, we had honestly, nobody knew who he was.
Oh, okay.
And you know, at the time he was like 13, maybe 14. And he showed up and I was like, that's Danny Way. Because he was like smaller than me.
Oh, okay.
I mean, he was tiny.
Uh-huh.
Little, tiny, skinny kid. And I was like, that's Danny Way. I'm like, I'm better than this dude.
And then
he got up on the vert ramp and I was like, how did that happen? Like, how did he learn? How is it possible that he can do all these tricks?
Yeah.
And he was doing all these tricks that no one had ever seen before. And like, it was like he came out of like a time warp, you know? And then I went back to and then after camp, I went back to North Carolina and I'm just like telling everybody, I just saw the best skateboarder in the world, period. And they're like, who? And I'm like, Danny Way. And they're like, who's that? So, yeah.
You should have shown them the picture, like, hey, this is Danny Way right here, you know?
Well, I didn't. That's the thing is, like, I didn't, you know, it wasn't like, I mean, I guess I did have the photos, but it's not the same when you see pictures.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you got to see this kid skate in person. And I was trying to describe the shit he was doing because he was doing like medallies and stuff. And like, I was like trying to explain it to my friends in North Carolina. I was like, he does like a no comply. And then like his tail goes up to the coping and then he like comes in. I couldn't describe it. And I was like, he's like 3 feet tall and he's doing 8-foot airs. I was like, and they were like, yeah, right. You know. So.
That's awesome, dude. That's a good memory to have, man. You know, that's amazing, that memory you have. Yeah. And then once you start developing, you know, start taking great good photos of your homies and getting the angles and all that. When did you start like venturing out to photography? When did you start like venturing your photography out to like other skaters and getting yourself out there more?
I mean, it all came from North Carolina. I mean, after I came back from skate camp, I was like, I still skated a lot, but then I just you know, just sort of slowly was becoming interested in photography. So for the most part, it was just like shooting skateboarders in North Carolina. Like, you know, I was friends with Mike Sinclair, and Bob Reynolds and Chet Childress and Kenny Hughes and Will Harmon. And like a lot of the stuff I did in the really, really early time was with Will Harmon. Because he just wanted to skate all the time.
Yeah.
And he was he was a skate rat. You know, he still is a skate rat. And he's like, you know, he was somebody who also kind of like had a fascination with like, you know, magazines and video, and like wanted to try to shoot you know, video parts and so, you know what I mean? Like he was focused in that way. So we kind of like had a good, we kind of matched up well. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. I mean, that's, you know, like, you know, looking through your book and all that, and just seeing all the photos that you took, and then, you know, from your time to now is amazing. You know, like shooting photos of, you know, like Stevie Williams, Josh Kalis, and all those dudes. I mean, like, how'd you meet those guys, and like, how'd you like approach that?
I mean, honestly, I think a lot of it was that I really had a lot of practice with a camera. By the time I started shooting photos of the guys in DC and Philly. And back then, honestly, like, especially in the East Coast, if you were shooting skateboarding, a lot of people screwed up the photos. Like, and, you know, that's a part of the process, is learning how to shoot and stuff like that. But like, you know, I can't tell you how many times I went up to DC or Philly, or, you know, up to the, you know, East Coast and stuff like that. And people were like, oh yeah, I did this trick. I shot a photo of it, but I never saw the photo. Or I did this trick and the photo didn't come out. Or the photo got fucked up. Like, I kept hearing that over and over again. So then, like, I think a lot of guys on the East Coast started to recognize me as somebody who would shoot the photo, it would come out good, and would have a pretty decent chance of being in the magazine. And so, but that all came from, like, you know, I had a point and shoot camera when I was like 8 years old. Like, I just always had a camera. So it was like, you know, just the sheer, you know, the 10,000 hour rule. You know, you practice and you practice and you practice, and you get a lot of stuff wrong. And I think I was on that trajectory a little bit, like one step ahead of a lot of other guys on the East Coast. And you got to remember, if you're on the East Coast, you didn't have a Grant Britton or a Bryce Kanites or a Mofo, or you didn't have those dudes to like sit you down and be like, okay, here's how you do it, and this is the right way, and you can fuck it up if you do it this way. Like, a lot of people didn't have that. It was just literally just a bunch of dudes with cameras trying to figure out how to shoot a skate photo. And you know, it's tough when you don't have help and you're shooting film.
No, I mean, because you got to learn your angles, and you got to learn like what you need to get. You know, you got to learn the time of like how when they're going to do that backside flip, you got to figure out how the right time to get that backside flip. You know,
and that's the other thing, is a lot of these tricks were so new that you didn't really know how to shoot a backside flip. Do you shoot it when the board is completely trucked up? You know, do you shoot it when your foot has caught the board? Like, a lot of, like, all those tricks that were invented or that people started to do in the early 90s, not only did they invent the tricks have to be invented and how to do them, but from a photography standpoint, you had to figure out what was the right way to show that shit. Like 360 flips are the hardest trick to shoot.
Really? Why you say that?
Back then, because you didn't know when you were supposed to shoot the photo. And most 360 flips as a still look kind of weird. You know? So it was like, you know, all of that stuff had to be developed. So not only was there a learning curve, and you couldn't see what you're doing because it was filmed, and you didn't have anybody showing you the ropes or giving you tips, you know, it was like it's a miracle any photos were came out of that era, you know.
Do you have a great memory of like, you know, like what's one memory you have of like messing up of somebody's photo or not getting a photo or something like that?
You know what? I don't necessarily remember a particular photo, but I know that once you made those mistakes, those technical mistakes, you never made those mistakes again. Because you're so just like bummed that you screwed up the photo that you're like, okay, I'm never going to do that again. You know, but I don't remember specific photos that I screwed up that I really wished came out better. For the most part, it was just me trying to figure out focus. Focusing was really tricky for me.
Yeah.
You know,
that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty rad. I mean, to like, not pretty rad that you didn't have mistakes. I mean, you probably did have mistakes, but you probably went back and like looked over those mistakes that you did and tried to make it perfect the next time you went out to shoot. Right?
Yeah, if you had a chance the next time. A lot of times you're just like, yeah, this is my one chance to get this photo with this dude, and I just screwed it all up, you know.
Yeah.
But hopefully, you know, you just sort of like oh well. I mean, that's part of it. Is like you're gonna go through that with anything. You know, you're gonna make mistakes, and hopefully, you know, the way that you approach those mistakes is just by saying, you know, I'm not gonna ever do that again.
Yeah.
You know,
well, it's like skateboarding. You know what I mean? You're gonna make mistakes on skateboarding. You know, like
yeah,
you're gonna tweak your ankle on that one trick, and you're like, shit, I gotta figure out how I'm gonna put my foot better. You know?
Yeah, and that's the thing about skateboarding is you really learn like how to stay focused while you're hurting yourself, and enough to figure out how to do something better.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then, how'd you come up with the name 93 Till? I mean, like, do you have different names for the name of the book, or?
Well, I didn't. I thought of a few other names, but 93 Till just seems so like you instantly know what it's about. You know, not just with the photo of Stevie, but like you instantly know, like, okay, this is 93. It also has a reference to the song, so you're like, oh, if you know the song, you know how sort of iconic that song was for the skate community.
Oh, social mission.
Yeah, for sure. And so it kind of wrapped it all up in a nice little package, you know. And the photo of Stevie is just like, you know, when you think about iconic skaters and you think about really skaters that were, you know, spearheading a movement. Stevie was that's Stevie. I mean, that he embodies that. Not only back then, but even to today, he's like still ripping. And I'm like, dude, are you like Benjamin Button? Did you go backwards? You know?
No, I think when 93, I think that was when like skateboarding actually took off. You know.
Well, I think yeah, in some ways. I mean, I think that 91, 92, 93, 94 were sort of like puberty for street skating. And I'm being specific about it in the terms of like street skating because, you know, there were these eras of skateboarding that happened in the late 70s and early 80s that were equally as important. It's just that they sort of were centered around vert skating or pool skating, you know, other types of skating. I think that street skating as we know it today, you know, those years, 91, 92, 93, 94, are sort of the puberty of that time. It was like trying to figure out skateboarding was trying to figure out who it was. Street skaters were trying to figure out where they fit in terms of the magazines and videos. And I mean, they sort of invented the way that people would see skate videos. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of things happening during that time. It was like the explosion of urban East Coast skateboarding. It was an explosion of hip hop, a certain style of hip hop, which is also sort of regarded as the golden age. It was, you know, it was the time when people were developing the language of what skateboarding looked like in terms of trick. And, you know, you had Slap magazine, which was sort of documenting all of this from a much more like a fresh angle. Yeah. And I think that all of these things were happening at the same time. And that sort of made for this, like, hey, we're all sort of like grouping together here, and, you know, we're going to open the doors to the lab and show you what we've been working on, and you know, and this is the way skateboarding is gonna look from now on.
Yeah.
Which I mean, you have, and it wasn't done on purpose. It was all sort of done organically, you know. So that's what's so incredible about that era. And I think that the '93, the name '93 Till is like obviously the song and like the time, but it's just like, you know, it just goes straight to the point.
No, definitely does. I mean, like, that, I mean, to me, that 93 is like, you know, was to me is like the era that, like, you know, took skateboarding, took hip hop, took a lot of fashion, everything out there, you know. And I think that's a perfect name to have, 93 Till, for the book, you know.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I you know, honestly, I don't know, I can't remember any other name for the book or any other photo for the cover of the book that was even like, you know, competing in terms of what ended up being on the cover.
Yeah, and do you have like a great memory of, like, or one of thousand? You probably have 1,000 memories, like, with Stevie Williams, shooting photos with them. I mean, do you have one that, like, stands out the most?
You know, I think the thing with Stevie, was that with a question about shooting with Stevie?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing with Stevie was, like, you know, I just wanted to shoot tons of photos all the time. Like, every chance to shoot a photo was just, like, exciting. Like, okay, what am I going to do this time to, like, you know, try something different or try something new, or, you know, whatever. I really want to show, you know, this trick in this way. And when a lot of guys back then, you know, there really wasn't any motivation to shoot photos or shoot video if you were on the East Coast, or, you know, you were, you know, someone in a place that didn't get much recognition. Like, you know, there's a lot of guys that were just, like, kind of super chill. They only skated a little bit, you know. It was sort of like, that was kind of a cool thing back then, is to not be seen as, like, super eager.
Mm-hmm.
And Stevie wasn't super eager necessarily. He just was like, he just wanted to, like, get stuff done. So when I would go to Philly, I'd show up and I'd meet him, and he'd be like, "Yo, what up?" Blah blah blah. We'd hang out for a minute, and he's like, "All right, man, what do you want to do? You want to shoot You want to shoot a photo? Let's film a line." So he always had ideas, and he always had, like, something constructive that he wanted to do, but it wasn't like he was doing it in, like, a, you know, I want to show everybody how good I am way. It was more like a, you know, I want to just go out there and, you know, get some shit done.
Yeah.
And so that was super cool for me because of my attitude about photography. So it was like a good match. But yeah, I mean, you know, he was just like, just a super talented kid, super talented, and definitely had like his own sort of, like, he had his own sort of rhythm going, you know, his own tempo, where he did what he wanted to do, and he kind of filtered out everything else that was happening. You know, he's on his own. He's just on his own vibe, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. And do you remember when you first got put into magazines, or the first magazine that hit you up to put your photos in?
Well, the first magazine that I got a photo in was Slap.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a photo of Mike Sinclair, and it was completely out of focus and blurry. And it was, like, probably the size of a, I don't know, like, it was probably the size of a debit card.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was super small, like, and I was like, oh, sick. And then from there on out, I was like, oh, I got to shoot more photos. I was like, it was funny because I wasn't bummed that like usually if you saw a photo in the mag and it's out of focus and blurry and it looks like shit, you're like embarrassed, you know? But I wasn't embarrassed. I was like, oh shit, I want to go shoot more photos, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was small enough so nobody really cared, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty
Did like after that, did like any other like magazines hit you up or anything, or?
No, I mean the way it worked back then is you just have to whatchamacallit, you just had to like send your photos to whoever you could send them to. Like nobody was going to ask you for photos unless you were already established.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean you just couldn't, like that was just the way it was. Like, you know, Grant and Dave at Transworld ended up recruiting me, so to speak, from Slap, and that was a total shocker. But
Yeah.
you know, it's like you gotta, you know, when you're shooting when you're shooting skating, you have to like, you know, you got to prove yourself, and you got to like, you know, get photos that are going to be that people are going to be excited about seeing, and there's a whole process to that. Yeah. So,
and how was that when you had Grant Britton and Dave Swift to recruit you? How did that make you feel?
I mean, I was like, no way. You know, I just was like, are you serious? Because it was actually Steve Barra that came up to me, and he was at a demo. And I had met him, I think, briefly or before, and he comes up and he's like, "Hey, so do you like working for Slap?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Have you ever talked to Dave Swift or Grant Britton over at Transworld?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Well, I think Dave probably would like to talk to you." And I was like, "Really?" And then a couple days later, he just called me.
Really?
And I was like, holy shit. You know?
That's awesome. That's badass, dude, to have like.
Yeah, you know. Oh, for sure. I mean, I loved Slap, but like there really wasn't much space for growth there. They ran like this kind of skeleton crew, which was cool because it allowed them to be nimble and do the things that they had been doing. But you know, I grew up looking at Grant's photos and like was super like inspired by him, and like he was a big influence. So when I started working for them, it was like, is this real? Like, you know. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome to have. And what gets to your book? Like, where, you know, like how's it going? Like, how's 93 Till doing?
It's really good, man. I'm really just totally just floored by the whole thing. Like, you know, there were moments in the process of making the book where I was like, you know, is anyone going to like this? Did I just waste all my money on this? Like, does anybody care? Is anyone going to like think that this is cool? And then there's other times where you're like, oh, this is going to be awesome. And you're just stoked. And like, it's a roller coaster, and it's really, really expensive, you know? And so when the book came out and we sold out like the first day, and we went back to print for a second printing in China. Literally like 3 days after the book came out, we went back for a second printing, which is a kind of a long process. But you know, it's just like, wow, like how rad is it that people are stoked on this? Like I had no idea that it would be as popular. And of course that's great in terms of like maybe trying to break even in terms of the cost. But overall it's just like getting to tell us your own story with a book is it's a real privilege. Like, and the amount of time and money, like I said, the amount of time and money that went into it just felt like, okay, I get the feeling that that wasn't a complete waste. You know what I mean? Like, so that was a huge relief, you know. So yeah.
That's awesome. And you did something with Skatepark in Tampa last pro, or actually in March, right?
Yeah, right before COVID. Yeah, I went out and I did a little like a show with a bunch of like big prints, and hung out in Tampa, and caught up with all these old friends that I hadn't seen in like 20 years, and that was really fun. That was really cool just to be there and kind of just sort of do a little look back, revisit type thing, and then of course 2 weeks later COVID started. So
yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy to think. Like Skatepark in Tampa Pro was like the last.
That was it.
Contest.
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah, it's a different world now.
Yeah, no. And then, like, what was the response of like people seeing you and then seeing that book at Skatepark in Tampa? What was the response of that?
I mean, a lot of people were like, "Whoa, holy shit, dude! Like, where have you been?" And then other people were like, "Hey, man, what's been going on?" I'm like, like, not much for the last 20 years. But everybody seemed really stoked, and I think skateboarding has now reached a certain age where the guys that were skating when I was skating, or when I started shooting photos, those are guys who are that, a lot of them are grown up and they have kids to skate. And that's a trip, man.
Yeah.
Because you're like, whoa, like this is full circle. So that you have the guys show up at the skate park with their kids, and they know you, and then their kids are like on the same. It just seems like it's like this whole next level, like new generation thing, which I just never. You didn't see that before because it didn't really exist.
Mm-hmm.
At least not in the way that it exists now.
Yeah, because I mean, it's pretty cool because you get to see like rad skate dads. That's what we call them, like rad dads, and just out there with their kids skating, and their kids are killing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, wow, awesome,
and then there's also a much different attitude about skateboarding with kids today, where it's like they can see it for the sheer fun of just being able to do something that helps build their confidence, and it's like this there are no rules type thing. Whereas I think when we were younger, we didn't have the luxury of, I think, what kids today have in terms of we didn't have the acceptance that they have. It's different for them when they get encouragement from their parents, and teachers aren't like angry at them for skating all the, what I mean? Like there's like a general acceptance of skateboarding, which I imagine probably changes the experience quite drastically.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the way we grew up skating was like, we were hated.
Yeah, exactly. Like you had to be ready to be like just hated on all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it was peers or, cops or jocks or, girls like thinking you're an idiot,
Now,
I mean?
Girls think, oh, you're a skater boy? Oh, you're all
yeah.
right.
Oh, exactly. That's kind of hard to get my mind around that's how things are these days. But
yeah. People like skaters, it's crazy to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a cool thing. Don't get me wrong. It's cool to see that, and it's rad because now we're accepted. But is it a good thing to be accepted? Is it better to be unaccepted? What do you think?
I mean, it's I think that the period of time of skateboarders not being accepted was actually a really healthy thing for skateboarding, at least to develop its own identity.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like being judged and marginalized to make you really dig deep and discover who you are and what you're all about. And I think skateboarding needed that period of time to figure itself out.
Yeah.
It was painful.
Yeah,
You know, there's a lot of like, you know, 90s were gnarly, man. People, there's a lot of shit talking and a lot of like, you know, we don't hang out with that crew of dudes, and you know, there was a tribalism and you know, beef and all. Like, you know, that was part of it, you know.
Yeah,
But
and
you know, a lot of people forget about that part of it too.
yeah, exactly. And look at it. Look what it made us to be. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
more.
yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly what you're saying. It's like it makes you dig deep.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, a couple more questions. Where can people get your book at?
Yeah, so the best place to get the book, I'd say, is a skate shop.
Okay.
We set it up so that skate shops sort of have a little bit of a priority over other book outlets, because you know, other book outlets are going to discount the book as soon as they get it. They're going to be like, oh, you guys are selling it for this much, well, we're going to sell it for less. And so, you know, skate shops were sort of the priority. So I would say buy it at a skate shop, support your local skate shop. You know, that's always a good thing. If you want to buy it from the publisher, which is also good, because skate shops, not all of them are going to have it, and some of them are going to sell out. You would want to go to goffbooks.com. That's GOFFBOOKS.com. And that's a great way to get it. So yeah, I mean, either at a skate shop or at goffbooks.com, I think is probably your best bet.
All right, cool. And then where can people, like, you know, follow you and stuff like that on social media? Is there, you have like a 93 till Instagram or anything?
Yeah,
or?
I got 93 till _ it's 93 till _ skateboarding. That's Instagram. So you know, there's a lot of posts on there, recent posts that are about, like, you know, going and signing books here and there, which I've been trying to do. You know, sort of piggyback on photography jobs that I'm doing, and try to you know, bring some books and do some signings while I'm, you know, swinging through LA or Miami or Chicago or something like that. You know, just trying to make the most out of that. But yeah, I mean, after the next few weeks, we're going to start posting more, you know, unpublished skate photos and stuff like that.
Oh, sick. And when you do the signings at, you do them at skate shops or do them at like a coffee shop?
That's the tricky thing. You know, I kind of just thought that it would be better, obviously, for skate. Well, the original idea was to do it at skate shops. But then with COVID and everything, it just made everything complicated. So I just was like, all right, I'm just going to go to Pulaski. You know what I mean? Or I'm just going to go to like the Waller Skatepark in Upper Haight in San Francisco, or Jaquan in LA, and just like, you know, just pull out some books and hang out and sign books and chill and, you know, that kind of thing. So that kind of just became the way that I was going to approach it, you know, I mean, obviously out of necessity because of the whole pandemic. Yeah.
Honestly, that's pretty badass, dude. I'm sorry to say that, but that's pretty fucking badass. Just to like to go to skate spots or skate parks or selling your books at skate shops. I mean, that's badass, dude. Because
yeah, well, thank you. No, I mean, honestly, one of the first places I did that at was Pulaski. And I spent so much time at Pulaski, and you know, all those dudes are guys that I've known for years and years and years. So it was like, that felt amazing. And I was just like, dude, this is what I should do whenever I can do it. This is what I should do. I should just go to skate spots, you know, because that's where people are skating there anyway. So, but yeah, it's like, yeah, I wish I would have been able to do like a bookstore or stuff like that, skate shops, but you know, it's kind of whatever you can do, you know?
Yeah, we'll see what happens 2021. I mean, doing like book signings at skate shops would be pretty badass, or skate parks or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely do more, and I'm going to sort of piggyback them on the photography work, you know, that I'm traveling for. So who knows? I mean, people are like, oh, you're going to be coming through, you know, Denver. I'm like, I don't think so, but you know, maybe there's a chance I'll get a job there, and then I'll be able to do stuff, you know, wherever I end up.
No, that's pretty awesome. And do you get like big lines of people when you go to like spots that like, hey, I'm gonna be at this spot, come meet me here? Do you get a big group of people to show up, or?
I mean, a few times. You know, a few places definitely, like, you know, like Pulaski was cool because, you know, it's just kind of like I said, just there's a lot of photos in the book from there, and I spent a lot of time there, you know, so that was fun. I mean, the only thing that sucks is that I don't really have control over what day it happens. So I was like, man, I really want to do all of these on the weekends. It would have been better to do that, but you don't always have that choice. But yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, some places just a handful of people show up. But you know, it depends on how much a part of the scene I was when I was shooting skateboarding. You know, like I barely shot photos in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived there for the last 12 years, but I barely shot any skate photos in New York. So it was like I just didn't have that connection as much. But SF and DC, you know, those places were. I lived there I lived in North Carolina, but I spent a lot of time in DC, and so you know, those are like, you know, bigger turnout.
Oh, and then what do you got? Anything coming up new, or anything you got planned for 2021 or end of the year or anything?
I mean, I'd love to do another book. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like I might poke around and see what I can come up with. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I'm just trying to get through this pandemic like everybody else.
No, definitely. Tell me about that. I miss being on the road with the show and all that stuff. So I mean, that's why I'm doing this like podcast, a one-on-one, just like a personal one, because it's kind of hard to travel on a show, travel with my other show and stuff like that. So we're just like, this whole live streaming thing is all new to me.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're doing it. You're making it happen. You know, just you got to experiment and try new things.
Yeah, definitely. And then one last question: what great advice that you can give to the upcoming photographer or the next who wants to write a book or anything like that? Do you have a great advice for that?
Well, I mean, honestly, like I would love to see books from skate photographers that I knew when I was shooting skating.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, I would love to see a Lance Dawes book and a Grant Britton book, and I mean, I could go down the list, you know. But for kids starting out shooting skating, like, or shooting anything for that matter, you know, I think that, like, you know, if you want to, you know, discover what you're passionate about, I think, and this is, I think, what I did, is just follow your curiosity. You know, because whatever you're curious about, I think, you know, for the most part, will lead you to something that you care about and that you feel passionate about.
Yeah.
And if it's photography of skateboarding, then cool. If it's photography of other stuff, then, you know, follow whatever it is. You know, if you're fascinated by something, follow that fascination, follow that curiosity. Because wherever it leads you, you know, usually ends up being a place of authenticity. You know?
Yeah, definitely. No, 100% agree. You know, and
yeah.
And that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, I hope, you know, that'd be badass. I mean, back to what you're saying, it'd be badass to see like a photography book of all these like photographers, you know what I mean? Like different
all the skate guys. Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool to do a skateboarding book about skate photography in the 90s that included everybody that was shooting.
Yeah, or do a collabo like you and just all your photographers just get together and just drop one big book. That'd be badass too.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. And you know, the thing about that, and the reason why I have wanted to sort of see that book come out from, you know, a Grant or a Dawes or something like that, is that, you know, they were shooting the same time I was, but they're going to tell their own story.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell that story. you know, that's their specific story. And I think that, you know, none of those books, none of those stories would ever look the same.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be completely different. And that's the rad part, is that even if like, you know, even if someone comes out with a book, it's like, well, none of it's competing with anything. You know, like if you have Grant's photos, you're going to see a completely different breed of skateboarders and a whole different like niche and vibe that you would see if you look at a book by Lance Dawes.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, you put all of those together, you know, Gabe, Bryce, Gaberman, O'Mealy, you know, there's so many dudes, you know, Joe Brook, Brian Ueda, like there's so many dudes that if you put all those books together, it just makes that era, you know, it communicates what that era was with more richness,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and that's the hope. I mean, hopefully people will be motivated and want to, like, you know, try to put a book together and go through that process. In the future, maybe we'll be seeing more of this kind of thing.
Yeah. So Grant and all you guys, you listening to this, hopefully we'll be able to see this.
Yeah, no, well, Grant's actually working on a book. I'm super stoked for him. He's been working on a book for a while. Yeah, and you know, it's like, you know, I get it. It's a long process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like, wow. Like, you think it's like, oh, pick some photos and lay them out and print them and sell them. It's like, no.
It's not like that.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, if you care as much as I care about the way that I put the book together, you know, it takes time. It takes time, and you put everything into it. You put your heart, you put your whole like story and how your life has gone into this book, and you want to tell the story of, you know, your journey. It's hard, man. It's hard. It's also hard because it's just you're doing it about you. It's like doing a documentary about yourself. Like, like, this is kind of hard and like really not, you know, not the wrong, it's just the wrong perspective. You know, it's hard to step back, really hard to step back.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Well, Pete, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show, man. And like, you know, it was great to hear, like, you know, your stories and everything that you've done with skateboarding and photography. And I really appreciate that, man. Like, thank you so much, man, for capturing our era and putting it in the book of what you see and everything. That's fucking awesome, dude. And I want to say mad respect for you, man. Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Absolutely.
And people, make sure you know, like I said, go grab 93 Till. Where do you get it at?
Goffbooks.com, GOFF books.com, GOFFBOOKS.com.
And also too, if your local skate shop doesn't have it, make sure they get it, dude, because like,
yeah, go to your local skate shop and say, hey, I want to get this book. I mean, it's Christmas coming up, so, you know.
Hey, perfect Christmas present.
It could be, yeah, it could work. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Pete, thanks so much for being on the show. We're at location at Waterboyz Skatepark / cafe on Pensacola, Florida. Want to thank those guys. The next TSM live show is going to be on November 29th at 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. But hey, you guys don't want to miss that show. This is our season finale for season 3. It's going to be great. And yeah, Pete, thank you so much, man. And I wish you the best of luck in everything. And I'm looking forward to getting that book soon and checking and reading it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope there's some good memories in there.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right, homie. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, and have a good week, brother.
You too. All right, Tommie. Take care.
Bye.